Lonely rancher found Apache girl hanging on a tree with a sign, "White man don't forgive." Under the merciless sun of New Mexico, Calder Wyatt rode with a slow, steady rhythm, dust lifting with every step of his dun mare. He had been trailing a lost heifer for half a day, the prints gone soft in the cracked earth. The silence out here was sacred, broken only by the faint creak of leather, the whine of wind, and the occasional call of a distant hawk. Calder liked it this way. Alone, quiet, predictable. But then he heard it. So faint it might have been wind. A sound like a breath that had forgotten how to breathe. He froze in his saddle, head tilting, heart slowing. It came again. A whimper, weak and sharp like a thread about to snap. He dismounted quickly, tying the reins to a dead limb. With his rifle slung over his back, he moved through the scraggly junipers and boulders until he came upon a clearing ringed by old cottonwoods. And there, beneath the oldest tree, he saw her. She was hanging by the wrists, arms stretched above her, her body limp like a broken doll. Her feet barely touched the dirt. Her skin was sun-dark and dust-covered, her long black hair matted with sweat and blood. Her chest rose in shallow, erratic breaths. But she was alive. Calder's eyes snapped to the crude wooden sign nailed to the tree above her head. The words were scrawled in thick red paint, angry and jagged. "White man, don't forgive." He stepped back involuntarily, bile rising in his throat. The air thickened. A warning? A message? A curse? He glanced around, scanning the ridges, the rocks. No movement, no sound. Just the wind brushing through dead leaves like whispers. His hand went to the knife on his belt. "Christ," he muttered, "what the hell did they do to you?" The girl stirred, barely. Her head lolled forward and he saw the raw burn marks where the rope bit into her wrists. He swallowed hard. "You hear me, girl?" he asked, voice hoarse. No response. "I am not here to hurt you," he said softer, almost to himself. His boots crunched forward, closer. He could see her face now, young, maybe 18, with a high brow and a strong jaw, her cheeks hollow from thirst. There was dried blood on her lip. He reached up, touched the rope. It was twisted mesquite fiber, harsh and old. Whoever tied it had meant for her to suffer, not just hang. He pulled out his knife. His fingers trembled. That sign. It screamed at him. He heard echoes of things he never said, never did. And yet, it made him guilty. It made him hesitate. But she groaned again, and that sound undid him. "Ain't all of 'em," he whispered, blade slipping into the rope. "I ain't that." But with one firm slice, the rope gave way. She fell forward, and he caught her just in time. Her body was warm, burning even, and light in his arms, like she had no bones left. Her eyes fluttered open, dark, frightened, unfocused. Calder eased her down to the ground, one knee in the dust. He poured water from his canteen onto a cloth and dabbed her cracked lips. "Easy now," he said. "You're safe, at least for the moment." She blinked once, then again, still no words, but her hand clutched weakly at his sleeve. He looked at the sign one last time, then at her. Then he pulled off his coat and draped it over her shoulders. "You got a name?" he asked gently. "Nothing. Guess we'll find one for you," he murmured. He stood, lifting her with effort, cradling her like something not yet broken. "But for now, you're with me." And with that, Calder Wyatt stepped back into the wilderness, carrying a girl marked for death and a secret heavy enough to hang a man. The sun was dipping low by the time Calder reached his ranch, just a modest outpost clinging to the edges of a desert too stubborn to forget violence. A single windmill creaked on the edge of the fence line, and the old barn sagged like it mourned something. The house itself was one room and a loft, roof patched with old sheet metal, but it stood, solid and honest, like the man who built it. Calder eased the girl from the saddle and carried her inside. She was fevered, her head pressed to his chest, whispering breaths like dry leaves skittering across a stone floor. He laid her on the cot and unwrapped the coat, careful not to startle her. Her eyes fluttered open for a moment, dark and wide and distant, but they watched him. The lantern flickered against the walls as he poured water into a metal basin and set it near her feet. He grabbed a clean cloth from a shelf and knelt. Her legs were bruised, scraped, one ankle swollen. Rope burns marred her wrists like brands. "I ain't gonna hurt you," he said, more to break the silence than to expect any reply. "Just cleaning up a bit." He dipped the cloth into the warm water and wrung it out. Then, slowly, reverently, he took her right foot and placed it in the basin. She flinched, just barely. He paused, waited. When she did not pull away, he began to wash the dust and blood from her skin, his movements gentle, precise, like he was touching something sacred. The water turned red and brown. He worked in silence, careful not to meet her gaze for too long, though he felt it on him, like a blade drawn halfway, unsure whether to strike or fall. Her lips parted once, as if to speak, but no sound came. "Reckon you don't talk much," he muttered, not unkindly. "That's all right. Silence is better than most things, most days." He finished the first foot, then the other. She let him. When he was done, he wrapped them in soft cloth strips and set her feet gently on a folded blanket. "You remind me of a river I used to camp near," he said quietly, almost to himself. It was dry most of the year, looked dead, but after the rains, it ran fast and deep. Had a name, but the locals called it Quiet Snake. Don't know why, just quiet. He looked at her again, studying her features in the lamplight. Cheekbones sharp as ridge lines, lips cracked but full, dark lashes thick with sand. She was young, too young for this kind of suffering, but there was something old behind her eyes, something that did not flinch from pain, only waited for it to pass. "I'll call you Lena," he said softly, "just for now. You look like a Lena. Quiet, but strong." She blinked once, slowly, no protest, no nod, just breath. Calder stood, hands wet, and reached for a blanket to cover her. He tucked it around her shoulders, then stepped back. "If you're hungry, there's beans. Not much, but better than air." Still no answer. He grabbed his bedroll and dragged it toward the door. He would sleep out by the barn tonight. Give her the space. It was not right for her to be watched by a stranger, especially not one with blood in his past and questions in his eyes. Before he stepped outside, he looked back one last time. She had shifted slightly, eyes closed, lips no longer trembling. The basin still sat beside the cot, tinged with the color of what had been done to her. He picked it up and emptied it outside, watching the water soak into the thirsty ground. Inside, she dreamed of fire, of horses, of ropes cutting skyward, and of hands, rough but gentle, washing the hurt away without asking anything in return. The days that followed passed with the slow rhythm of desert life, but the silence inside the house was different now, thicker, charged with something just beyond reach. Lena, as Calder still called her, ate when he brought food, though never much. She moved with caution, eyes always alert, posture tight like an animal who had been caged too long. She never spoke, but he caught her watching him when she thought he would not notice. At night, Calder left her the cot and took to the barn, his rifle beside him. He pretended it was to give her space, but the truth was more complicated. He was afraid, not of her, but of what her presence meant. That sign on the tree still burned in his mind. "White man don't forgive." Whoever wrote it had meant for her to die slow, and whoever they were, they might still be coming. It was 3 mornings later when he first saw the boot print. Slightly smaller than his, newer than his, and angled toward the barn. Calder squatted beside it in the hard-packed dirt and studied the heel. Military issue, cavalry. The print was fresh, no more than a few hours old. He rose slowly, eyes scanning the ridgeline. Nothing but sagebrush and heat shimmer. Back inside, Lena sat by the window, still and silent. She did not look at him when he entered, but her body tensed. "You seen anyone?" he asked. She said nothing, only pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "I think we've got company," Calder murmured, more to himself. That evening he kept the lantern low and stayed by the porch, rifle across his knees. The wind had died. Coyotes howled far off, and the stars blinked into view like ghosts waking up. Lena did not sleep. He could hear her moving inside, pacing the floor in slow circles. It was around midday the next day when the rider came. Dust curled behind the chestnut horse as it approached. The man atop it wore the blue and gold of the U.S. Cavalry. His rifle was holstered, his hat low, his jaw rough with stubble. Calder stepped down from the porch, one hand resting casually on his belt. The soldier reined in his horse and squinted down. "You Calder, Wyatt?" "Depends who's askin'." "Lieutenant Graham, Dust Hollow Station. We're tracking a fugitive." The man pulled a folded notice from his breast pocket and handed it down. "You seen this one?" Calder took the paper, already knowing what it would show. A crude sketch of a young Apache girl. Sharp eyes, long hair. The words, "Wanted for murder and escape. Dangerous. Reward, $50, 0 cents." Calder looked up slowly. "Can't say I have." "You sure?" the soldier asked, leaning forward. "Small, quiet. Might be hurt. Might be hidin'. We think she was rescued or taken by someone passin' near the Cottonwood Flats." Calder held the paper a second longer, then folded it and handed it back. "Ain't seen nobody but jackrabbits and a cow that don't listen." Lieutenant Graham narrowed his eyes. "She's not just a runaway, Mr. Wyatt. She's part of a violent group. Savages. That sign they left? They mean it." Calder's jaw tightened. "If I see anything, I'll send word." The soldier studied him for a moment longer. Then he nodded once and turned his horse. "See you do." Calder watched him ride off until the dust disappeared. Inside, Lena stood just beyond the curtain. She had heard every word. She stared at him, unmoving. He stepped in, took off his hat, and leaned it against the door. "They came looking. Showed me a paper. Said you were wanted." She did not speak. "I told them no." Her eyes narrowed, confused, suspicious. "I don't know what you did, Lena, and maybe someday you'll tell me. But out here, a man makes choices. I made mine." He turned to the stove, pretending to stir the beans he had already made. Behind him she moved, barely a shift, a small breath. And in that moment, trust cracked the silence just a little wider. The afternoon sun hung low, casting long shadows across the yard as the wind softened for a while. It had been a strange day. Too quiet, like the desert was holding its breath. Calder sat on the porch, sharpening his knife with slow, rhythmic strokes. Each pass of steel on stone echoed faintly through the open yard. He focused on the motion more than the blade, as if the repetition might keep his thoughts from drifting too far toward the woman sleeping inside. Or not sleeping. He paused, cocking his head. The faint crunch of footsteps on gravel reached his ears. Not a coyote, not a horse. Something lighter, human. He looked up. Lena was outside. It was the first time she had stepped beyond the threshold on her own since he brought her home. Her bare feet touched the earth tentatively, like she was testing if it would still hold her. The woven blanket he had left folded at the edge of her cot hung from her shoulders, trailing like a second skin. She walked slowly, her steps uneven but certain, toward the far end of the yard where the barn stood watch. Calder set the knife aside, not moving at first. He watched her, not wanting to shatter the moment. She looked smaller in the light, more fragile, and yet something in the way she moved had changed. She was not escaping, she was reclaiming. She reached the bare patch of dirt near the barn, a place where the wind had swept clean all debris. There she knelt, carefully, as if kneeling before something sacred, and let the blanket fall to her elbows. Her fingers moved with purpose as she picked up a stick and began to draw in the dust. Only then did Calder rise. He walked over slowly, boots quiet on the dirt, giving her space. He stood a few feet behind her, watching her hand trace lines into the earth. In the dirt she had drawn a bird, wings stretched wide, mid-flight, but flames encircled it like a burning crown. The lines were bold and sharp, etched with tension. The bird looked alive and in agony, its wings angled upward, as though trying to escape the fire or rise with it. Calder had seen war, seen symbols carved into rifles and burned into skin, but this was something older, a cry, a prayer. He squatted beside her, his voice low and respectful. "What's that?" Lena did not look up. Her face remained still, eyes focused on the drawing. For a long moment she said nothing, as if deciding whether or not to let the memory free. Then she spoke. "Bird in fire," she said, voice dry and cracked, like the riverbeds in midsummer. "My people's sign." Calder remained silent, his eyes never leaving the image. She tapped the center of the bird with the stick. "This was my father's, our family. We painted it on tents, carved it on boughs, always flying, always fire." Calder could feel the tension in her body, the way her shoulders pulled back, the tightness in her jaw. She was bracing for something. "They come. Soldiers. Whitecoats. Last spring," she continued haltingly, "say we must move. Far. Dry place. No food, no water. Say we're danger." She paused. The stick in her hand trembled. "We say no. We stay. We fight." Her voice thinned. "They burn. Kill. My mother. My 2 brothers. Burn the old ones inside the tent." Calder clenched his fists slowly, jaw tight. Something old and angry stirred in his chest. "I run. Hide. They find me. Beat. Tie me. Call me thief. Say I took rifle. I didn't." Then she turned, locking eyes with him for the first time. There was fury in her voice now. "I did not steal. I did not kill. I did nothing wrong." Her voice echoed in the open air like thunder across dry land. Calder did not speak for a moment. Then his voice came, low but certain. "I believe you." She turned back to the dirt, dropped the stick. Her hands fell into her lap.